In 2017, a team of scientists put 705 people from the Bolivian Amazon into a CT scanner. They were looking at arteries. What they found was the lowest level of heart disease ever measured in any population on Earth. Not low, the lowest, nothing else comes close. An 80-year-old Tsimane man has the arteries of an American in his mid-50s. They have no doctors, no statins, no cholesterol tests, no gyms. Most of them have never had their blood pressure taken in their lives. So the obvious conclusion is the one everybody reaches. Ancient life was healthier, modern life broke us, go and eat like a caveman. That conclusion is wrong. And what's actually going on is a lot harder to live with. Start with that study because it's the strongest piece of evidence anybody has. The Tsimane are a forager horticulturalist people living in the Amazon basin in Bolivia. They hunt, they fish, they grow some plantain and rice. Researchers scanned 705 of them and measured calcium deposits in the coronary arteries. That's the stuff that builds up over decades and eventually kills most people in the developed world. 85% of them had none, 0. In the comparable American sample, that number was 14%. And here's the part that ruins most diet advice. The Tsimane eat about 72% carbohydrate. They are not on a low-carb diet. They are barely on a low-anything diet. What they do have is movement. The men average around 17,000 steps a day, not exercise, just living. And almost nothing they eat was made in a factory. The healthiest hearts ever recorded belong to people with no access to a single thing we invented to protect hearts. Here's a second one, and this one is stranger. In every industrialized country on Earth, blood pressure climbs steadily as you age. It is so consistent, so universal that we stopped thinking of it as a disease. We treat it as simply what getting older is. Your doctor expects it, the charts are built around it. Among the Tsimane, it doesn't happen. Same in the Hadza, same in the Yano Mahmi, same in essentially every foraging population anyone has measured properly. A 60-year-old has roughly the blood pressure of a 20-year-old. Sit with that for a second. Rising blood pressure isn't aging. It's something we do to ourselves, so consistently and so universally that we mistook it for biology. Now go back further and look at skeletons. In hunter-gatherer remains, cavities show up in roughly 1 to 2% of teeth. Then farming arrives, and that number jumps to 10% and higher. Everywhere on every continent, independently wherever agriculture starts. It isn't that they stopped cleaning their teeth. Nobody was cleaning their teeth. It's that stored grain is sugar and sugar sits against enamel. You can date the invention of farming from a jawbone. The holes arrive at the wheat. Here's one from much closer to home. Myopia, short-sightedness, is close to absent in foraging populations. Almost nobody has it. In modern developed countries, it's 30 to 40% of the population. Among young adults in urban East Asia, it's 80 to 90%. 80 to 90%. And the cause isn't quite what you think. It isn't screens exactly. It's near work combined with not enough time outside in bright daylight while your eyes are still growing. Without enough outdoor light in childhood, the eyeball grows slightly too long, and once it's too long, it stays too long. We broke our own eyes in about 3 generations. And we did it by keeping children indoors. And before we go further, let me kill the one you were probably about to think. They did not sleep more than you. In 2015, researchers strapped monitors to 3 separate pre-industrial groups: the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane again. These are people with no electric light, no screens, no alarm clocks, and no shift work. They slept between 5.7 and 7.1 hours a night. That's less than the 8 hours you have been told you're failing to get. They don't nap much either. They go to sleep about 3 hours after sunset and wake before dawn. And in the languages of 2 of those groups, researchers could not find a word for insomnia. Not because they slept perfectly, because lying awake worrying about how much you're sleeping is not a thing that happens to them. So let's go to the moment it all changed. Around 10,000 years ago, humans start farming, and the skeletons change. People get shorter measurably. It shows up across most regions anyone has studied. More cavities, which we covered, more signs of nutritional deficiency, more markers of infectious disease, more stress lines in the bones and teeth, the kind you get from periods of not enough food during childhood. Their bones got weaker, their jaws got smaller, and their teeth stopped fitting in them, which is why you had wisdom teeth taken out and they didn't. And the diet narrowed. A forager eats dozens of different plants and animals. A farmer eats mostly one crop, and whatever that crop is short of, you are now also short of. Farming didn't make us healthier. It made us numerous. Those are completely different things. None of this is a wellness theory. The Tsimane heart study was published in the Lancet in 2017. The blood pressure work was published in Hypertension. The myopia figures come from a Lancet review. The skeletal work comes from decades of bioarchaeology, most of it from Clark Spencer Larsen and the people who followed him. This is not a podcast telling you to eat organ meat. This is the mainstream medical and archaeological record, and it says the same thing from 4 different directions. Okay, now let me take the whole thing apart, because I have been telling you the flattering half. They were not healthier. They were dying. Roughly 27% of hunter-gatherer children died before their first birthday. Around 46% were dead before they turned 15. Read that again, nearly half of everyone born did not reach 15. Now, if you did survive to 15, you had a genuinely good chance of reaching 68, 70, older. And that is the number people quote when they tell you ancient humans lived long, healthy lives. It's true, and it quietly leaves out half the population because they aren't in the sample. They died before the sample started. What killed them was infection, injury, childbirth, and each other. Go and look at the bones, they're full of healed fractures, and plenty that never healed. And the Tsimane aren't living in paradise either. They carry an enormous burden of parasites and infection. Their immune systems are switched on more or less permanently. Some researchers wonder whether that constant inflammation is part of why their arteries stay so clear, which would mean the thing keeping their hearts young is the same thing making them ill. And here's the last piece. It wasn't modern life that did most of the damage, it was farming. The shorter bodies and the rotten teeth show up 10,000 years ago, not with television. But farming is also the reason there are 8 billion of us. It's the reason there are cities and writing and surplus and universities and scientists and CT scanners. The thing that wrecked our teeth built the machine that can now measure exactly how wrecked they are. So here's what actually explains all of it. We did not get healthier. We got older. Almost everything on the modern list of killers is a disease of survival. You cannot develop heart disease at 70 if you die of measles at 4. And once you see it that way, look at the trade, item by item. Stored food ended famine. It also gave us obesity and type 2 diabetes. Living packed together in settlements gave us cities, trade, writing, everything. It also gave us plague, smallpox, measles, tuberculosis, and flu, most of which came out of the animals we domesticated. Sanitation and antibiotics stopped children dying, which let people reach the ages where cancer and dementia live. Every single disease of civilization is the shadow of a solution. We didn't trade health for convenience. We traded dying young for dying slowly. And almost nobody, given the actual choice, would take the first deal back. So the honest version of the question isn't were they healthier? They weren't. Half of them were dead before they were old enough to vote. The honest question is why the ones who survived aged so much better than we do, with none of the things we built specifically to help people age better. We know some of the answer: move constantly, eat things that didn't come out of a factory, get outside, don't sit down for 11 hours a day. We have known that for a while now, and it hasn't helped very much. We took the deal. We are the first humans in history who mostly get to grow old. And we spend about a third of that time managing the consequences of being allowed to. If you got something out of that, drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. Subscribe if you want one strange question answered every week, and there's another one on screen right now. See you in the next one.